Hi, my name is Andrew Kim, and I'm a puppeteer. I make and perform puppets. My wife and I have a company called Thingamajig Theater, and we make puppet plays and giant street puppets that perform throughout the UK and sometimes around the world. I'm also the founder and former director of Handmade Parade, so you might have seen me up on stilts or in a giant puppet at some of our parades. I also perform smaller puppets, and I'm here to teach you some basics of how to perform a puppet. First, I'm going to teach you some basics using a tea towel that you might have at home. And then we'll move on to your cardboard puppets and play with some ideas on how to bring them to life. Now I'm going to teach you some basics of puppetry by using just a tea towel. So, would you pause this video and get a tea towel from the kitchen? Great. So open your tea towel and put some fingers inside it like that, and then grab that bit, move your hand to the outside, and then we have a head. So once again, just sticking your hands, a few fingers in the inside center, grab that, and this is your head of your puppet. That's kind of like the nose there, and this is going to be the body. Okay? Now, I'm just going to ask you to grab a tiny bit of fabric like that, and that's going to be an arm or a hand. So now, that tea towel has become a puppet. Okay, so now what makes this a puppet? First of all, I want you to, when you grab that head, I want you to use it with a light touch. Don't put a big fist on it, just a light touch, and just move that around. First of all, oh, I lost a hand. Move that puppet around, move that head around so that it looks like it's looking around. This is the first and most important part of puppetry, is that you need to know at all times that the puppet is looking at something, okay? Because when the puppet is looking and the audience sees that the puppet is looking, the audience thinks that that puppet is looking around, taking the world in, and then so therefore it must be alive. So if this puppet is looking at me, and then looking at you, the camera or the audience, we seem to think that the puppet is taking in the world around and having an emotional response to it. So it might be see you, and it might be really happy. Or it might see you and be a little bit scared. Okay? So let's do that. So everybody grab your puppet and just look around. Let's all do this together. Just look around. And then look at you. Now you should see the moment, even though it doesn't have eyes, the moment that it looks right at you. Okay, so your puppet's looking around, it looks at you, and looks away. Okay, now a puppet also needs to look exactly where it's going or what it's doing. So for instance, if this puppet wanted to move from this side to that side, this side to that side, it would first look to see where it's going. Perhaps think about it or tell the audience that it's thinking about going over there. Decide to go there, and then go there. And then once it's gone there, it's going to tell the audience that it's done that. Okay, once again, rewind. Puppet's here, looking around. Suddenly it realizes, what's that? I think I want to go there. And then it does go there. And then once it's there, tells the audience, I like it here. The next thing I want to talk to you about that's important is the weight of the puppet. So now a puppet needs to have the appropriate weight that it should have if it were, had all its bones and muscles and that kind of thing. So, how does a puppet move through space? If it were too fast and floppy, it wouldn't look like a puppet, it wouldn't look alive. So, it would have to have, you need to just decide in practice, like, how does this puppet move that I believe it? That's one option. Maybe it's, or maybe it's, I don't know. Maybe that, or maybe it's some sort of strange. I don't know. But anyway, you need to have a little experiment about that. But we need to believe that it lives in this with the same gravity that we would if we had all its muscles and bones and all that kind of thing. Okay? So the first idea was the focus, or the way that the puppet looks, keeping that alive and always looking around. The second is the weight, so we have the appropriate kind of movement. And also part of weight would be that if we need to believe that this is a puppet, if it starts the story at this height and it walks across, it must stay at that same height. Yeah, that was not a believable walk. It's the same at the same height. I'm gonna go over there. See ya. I'm gonna jump. Let's look at the movement for the bird. Take your right hand, if you're right-handed, and put it on the tube that controls the head, and your left hand there if you're left-handed, and your other hand on the poles. Let's look at the head movement. Keeping the wings still, what can we do? We've got a nice twist, and you could do a little bit of up and down as well, but your best movement is the side to side. Bear in mind, you have to keep the wings still when you're doing that. And then with the wings, figure out what the best movement is to get both wings at the same time, even. You could be a little bit behind the body there, or you could be right underneath. Once again, keeping your head still and focusing on the one hand movement. Okay? Because if you try to do both at the same time, it's a little bit wobbly, and I think it's best to just decide, at this moment, I'm going to focus on the wings. At this moment, I'm going to focus on the head. Okay? So let's try flying. How does it fly? Okay? You'll notice that a bird doesn't always flap its wing all the time. Sometimes it's going to be flapping its wings, and other times it's just going to be gliding. So when it's gliding is a good time for you to keep the wings stable and then just look around. So here's an example. I'm flying across, I'm going to glide, and I'm going to turn my head, look around, and then I'm going to flap again, and then use my head. And then let's say, ooh, I see somewhere to land. I'm going to flap and land. Okay? And then once I'm there, I could keep the wings stable, look around, look at the camera, see where I want to go. Ooh, that looks interesting. And I'm going to go over there. Flap, 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 flap. And I'm off. Okay? So just a reminder. So we want to decide when the wings are flapping and when the head's moving, and find interesting ways to fly. So sometimes you're moving the head, sometimes you're moving the wing. Oh, I forgot to tell you, when it does a turn, it's really good if you could look where it's going first before it goes there. Just like we did with the tea towel, where the head is going. And then every once in a while, make sure you're looking at the camera or the audience if you're doing this live, and then fly off. And that's the movement for the bird. Now let's look at the movement for the fish. Now you'll notice the first thing about the fish is that it's got, the main movement is the bend in the spine. Now to get the best movement, take your right hand, if you're right-handed, under the head like that, and your left hand on the tail like this. Just a light touch. And if you're left-handed, put your left hand under the head and your right hand on the tail. Now let's just try a smooth bend of the spine. Remember, we're underwater, so everything needs to be a little bit slower and smoother. And once you get a nice even movement like that, now we're going to try to undulate, which means one bit first and then the other bit follows on. So this is going to be your main movement with the fish. Your right hand head first and then the tail. Head first and then the tail. Try to get that nice and smooth. It's like a wave. Okay? And you might want to practice this in front of a mirror to get it really nice and smooth. Okay? And we're just holding it in one place, but of course a fish has to swim. So this is what it's going to look like when it swims. Now you'll notice that most of the forward motion is when the head is moving, and then it slows down a little bit when the tail catches up. Okay? Try that a few times until it's nice and smooth. And you'll see that it might be interesting, it might look really nice swimming one way, but it's harder to do it swimming the other way, right? So we're going to do a little bit of a cheat so that it swims really slow and gracefully going across this way, and then when it turns around, it might just glide a bit and might just have a little bit motion in the tail. So it might swim this way beautifully, and then turn around and then just glide. Okay? And also remember that you've got depth. So sometimes it might be swimming down, and sometimes it might be swimming up. And as we learned with the tea towel, it's very important to control the head, make sure it's looking around. So it doesn't always have to be swimming. Sometimes it might stop and look at the camera, really look at the camera, or look at something that it wants to eat or chase. Now you'll notice when I stop, I don't stop completely because otherwise it'll look a bit fake and it'll probably just sink to the ground. So when you stop and look something, just have a small bit of movement in the tail so it's undulating still. And then it picks up some energy and keeps moving. Okay? So once again, beautiful swims across, some glides going back, and then when it's every once in a while stop, look, and then swim off. That's your basic movement for the fish. Let's look at the movement for the string puppet or the marionette. You'll have two rods here, one that controls the head and one that controls the body. Hold the body with your right hand if you're right-handed, or your left hand if you're left, and the other hand on the head. First, let's figure out how high to hold the puppet. You'll need a table or some surface to work on, and then you'll want to hold it just so that the feet are barely touching the ground. You don't want to hold it here, and you don't want to hold it here, but just when it's right touching the ground. And then for the body, we have a few different options of movement. If we're moving slowly, you could go front, back. It's almost as if you're pushing off those feet. Let's go across. And that it's touching the table so that the feet stops in between each movement. Or you could go fast, which is just a nice bounce, but also just touching the table. And of course you could also do a jump, so push back and jump and land. Once again, here we go. A jump, push back and jump, and land. So we have a few different options. We've got walk, and run, and jump. And with this puppet, you can go change directions quite easily. You'll find that one direction is probably more articulate than the other, and so when you're going this way, you might want to do the more detailed movements, and then when you're going across, you might want to just go a little bit faster. Now, the head. The head, you'll get the best movement. When you're walking around, you want to try to keep the head as stable as possible. It will wobble a little bit, but try to keep it as stable as possible. And then when you stop, that's when the head can really look around, sniff the air, make a little barky sound. Maybe eat something off the ground. Okay. Oh, and then also the puppet can sit. And to sit, we want to try to get the legs to fall forward, not back. So once it's in a standing position, you want to just rock it back so that the feet are forward. And then you could have lots of control over the head this way. And then to get back up, you'd want to imagine pushing off and then landing. So once again, rock it back. Oh, that wasn't so good. The feet got caught. Rock it back, push off, and land. And then, of course, we could go off from there.